Hello there and welcome to this, my vlog of the second week of November 2021, and we're going to follow the same format that I did the last time that I recorded, which is a little bit of news in the BattleTech world first, and then I'll get on to my subject today, which I've not decided on the title yet. I'll decide that when I upload the video to YouTube, but it will be something along the lines of my filthy, disgusting love for the Capellans. Controversial topic, I'm sure most of you will agree, especially from someone who proclaims to be a Fed Sons fanboy. So this is going to be an interesting one, but you can probably guess what direction I'm going to go in if you've seen other videos that I've done, because there's a very specific thing that I adore about the Capellans, but I'll get into that in due time. Firstly, let's deal with the news. The news. I say that, I've built that up. There's not much to say. It's been another very slow week in the BattleTech world. Ironically, about 3 hours after I posted my last video up, which was last weekend, Catalyst did drop some pretty big news, but it then wasn't news for very long, because the news was that they'd started to put the Wave 2 products on their website, and then the non-news was that most of this sold out within about 4 hours. So I didn't bother doing an extra video on that or anything, because I got the email at approximately 2 o'clock in the morning UK time, which is understandable given that they're based in out on the west coast of America. And I usually get up early, so I usually get up at maybe 5-6 o'clock in the morning. So even by the time I had seen it, I went and checked on the Catalyst website, because, you know, I was not necessarily going to buy it, but I thought, ooh, let's see if it's still available. And as you can see here from the, I think I'll be in the bottom right hand corner, hopefully, on this video. So hopefully you can see this. I can actually just zoom in a little bit here. There we go. I can always never really see what the quality is like. Hopefully you can see that if you couldn't before. But you can see the Inner Sphere Force Packs have sold out. There are still some clan ones left though. Now, the important news is not that they've sold out, because I do think they'll be keeping quite a lot in reserve. I think, as I've talked about in previous videos, I think they will start to trickle this out. So I think this is the first droplets from the trickle. And this is kind of proven by the fact that if we go into this link here, you can see that there were 4 up for sale. So there was the Command Lance and the Battle Lance, which are the 2 Inner Sphere packs from Wave 1. And then there's the Direct Fire Lance and the Urban Lance. The Direct Fire Lance is the one with the Atlas and the Marauder 2, and the Urban Lance is the one with the Victor and the Hunchback, I think. I can't remember all Mechs that are in those, but definitely 2 of the most popular lances for sure in the Inner Sphere. Sold out very, very quickly. However, don't despair. I think there are still a lot of these trickling down to retail. I've certainly seen that in the UK. Can't speak for your particular region. I think if you're in the US, it'll probably be the easiest to get hold of these, because a lot of people will be reselling them on eBay. If you're in the periphery of the BattleTech universe, which I think the UK probably sits in that. Australia as well, by the sounds of it, given that all the problems that they're having with the logistics of getting Wave 2, unfortunately. Then maybe it's more difficult for us, I think. So we have to have a little bit more about us in terms of getting the goods available as quickly as possible. I've certainly done that by buying all the extra force packs that I need from a company in Canada. And I've also, I think I've talked about this in a previous video, I supplemented those buys by basically duplicating everything and buying from a UK company as well. So I should get them all around the same time. If I do get duplicates of everything, I am just going to sell them on at retail. I've said this before, I might do a giveaway, or I might actually do something for a charity or something like that. I may put them on eBay for ridiculous prices, but then say, I don't know, if people buy this, then I'll donate whatever proceeds go to charity or something like that. We'll see. Anyway, close to the time. I don't know if I'm going to get the duplicates, because when you pre-order these things from third-party companies, that's on the proviso that they get the products, which they are not 100% guaranteed to get for obvious reasons. You know, there might be supply chain problems, or that company might go bust or something. I mean, who knows? This won't be a delivery that I get till next April, hence why I've basically bought everything that I need twice. But I'm not being greedy. Like I said, I'm not going to go and scalp on eBay. I'm not going to keep it all for myself. I will give that back to the community in some guise, which I'd imagine will, you know, will sell quite quickly, given that the demand for these seems excessively high. I'm really glad that they're doing this trickle-down system. I think that's going to be very, very advantageous, because I'm going to guess that they've kept a lot back in reserve. I think maybe they'd said something like, okay, we'll put 500 out in the first instance. You know, like 500 direct lance, 500 urban lances, whatever. And we'll see how that goes. I'm hoping that they've done that. I'd be pretty traumatized if we found out that they'd put all, and it was a lot, it was like an extra 7,000 prints outside of actual Wave 2 or something like that. If they've just decided, oh, we'll just put all 7,000 up, and all 7,000 have gone in like, what, 3 hours? I mean, I can't imagine that's the case. I'll tell you why I can't imagine that's the case, because some UK retailers and the Canadian retailer had put things up ages and ages ago on their website, and yes, they went quite quickly, but it took them like about 2 weeks to sell maybe like 20 box sets or something. I kept going back to check just out of interest, because I'm making these videos, and it didn't look like they were putting them up and then they were selling out like immediately. Obviously though, that's slightly difficult to gauge, because they're not huge companies. Well, Catalyst aren't a huge company either, but if you're into BattleTech and you know anything about it, you'll go to Catalyst to see what they are selling, because they are the people that, you know, sub on the IP from Tops, whereas third-party companies are just presumably doing like pre-orders on things, or maybe they back the Kickstarter and are getting all that in the Kickstarter, and then they'll sell it on for a nice profit. So we'll see what happens anyway, in terms of how they go. But I just advise that people just check the websites and the news feeds and see what they are actually putting out. I think this trickle down system, and I talked about this in one of my previous videos, in terms of like almost like a calendar list that I'd been able to piece together by looking at the pre-release dates. So for instance, like some of these force sets, like I think it's the Urban Lands. I thought the Urban Lands one wouldn't come out until quite late. I'm saying that completely off the top of my head. I might be wrong. I mean, I might have said that completely differently in one of the previous videos, but I don't know why. I just thought the Urban Lands one was a late one. Now I'm thinking it might be the one with the dragon, actually. Yeah, in fact, it might be that one. I can't remember. I'm going to shut up and continue. So what I would suggest is, again, that you check to see what Catalyst are putting out, because if they are selling these directly off the website, then the chances are that they'll be then available somewhere at like third-party retail, either at the time that they put them on the Catalyst site or beforehand. That is 100% been the case with the direct Firelands. That was the first one that I saw going up everywhere. Like people, I don't know if they need permission from Catalyst, but I saw like random game stores in the UK just saying, oh, we've got loads of BattleTech in, and when you check into the finer print, it was all the direct Firelands. Or like they'd have that, and there was also a clan variant as well. Sorry, you're gonna have to forgive me if you're a clan player, because I'm not really that bothered about clan stuff. But speaking of that, I will, out of courtesy, go and have a look at that tab. So on the clans, you can see that there are some force packs left. So this is good to know. So the Clan Heavy Star Pack, which is from Wave 1, looks like that's available. Command Star, that's available. Fire Star, that's available. Oh, sorry, no. What am I talking about here? I'm looking at the wrong bit. Let's do that again. Okay. No, they're all sold out. Are they? No. Okay. Okay, yeah. The Clan Heavy Striker Star is available. You just have to look at this tab. I was looking at the price thing up here, but it's coming up. It's on this section. If this turns to red, then it's sold out, obviously. Clan Fire Star sold out. Clan Heavy Star sold out. And the Elementals are still available. So Elementals and Heavy Striker Star, which is from Wave 1. Now, that, I think, bodes relatively well, that it's not just sold out, like, overnight. There are still at least one force pack that you can buy on the Catalyst site now. Saying that, clan stuff I don't think is ever going to be as popular as Inner Sphere stuff, because most people in BattleTech are more interested in the Inner Sphere. I'm certainly in that bracket. I will play. Well, I don't play clans specifically, but I have a clan collection because I like to have powerful antagonists, which is what the clans are to me. But the inner sphere stuff is where I think most people are at, especially because the wave 2 section of the Kickstarter, there was so much clan stuff in there. It was all orientated towards the clans that I think a lot of people got over clanned, and now they're kind of thinking, oh, I should have really got some more inner sphere stuff. I want more inner sphere stuff, and I think that's why the inner sphere stuff is selling out very, very quickly. So that's pretty much the news as is at the moment. I think we're all still really apprehensively waiting for Wave 3 announcements, but I'm not holding my breath on that because I don't think we'll get anything until all the Wave 2 issues are resolved, of which I still believe there are Wave 2 issues. I'm still hearing about people in Australia not getting their Wave 2, which is now getting into the trauma territory. I mean, I think if they don't get it by Christmas, there will be blood. I think, and it's such a huge shame because I think the Australian New Zealand market in BattleTech is actually really, really vibrant. I'm not sure why that is, but it seems to be the case. I whenever I'm watching like videos on BattleTech or I see, people like talking about it online, a lot of these people are based in like Sydney or Melbourne or Auckland. It's something that obviously resonates, which is great. Much more so than I think that it does in like the UK for whatever reason. So I'm really disappointed for everybody concerned that the BattleTech IP and Catalyst themselves have kind of been dragged into a little bit of a muddy patch here, and it might have sullied their name. You do see people going ridiculously over the top about it. I mean, like, it's one thing to be disappointed. It's another thing to be like harassing the staff and going on like all caps shouting at people on forums, which I mean, I know you people have got to vent and they've paid their money and everything else, but for reasons I've spoken about many times before, there are many factors outside of Catalyst's control here, and I think if you look at the overall big picture, I've said this on a previous video, I did a specific video in the past about why I thought Catalyst games were fantastic for BattleTech, and that overall they've been incredibly good. Yes, there are issues, but yes, there are really mitigating circumstances for them at the moment as well, and I think a lot of people need to just cool their jets a little bit and just, keep it in mind that where BattleTech was 5 years ago, need I say any more? Because it was almost a dead franchise and it's had like real life breathed back into it, and I think we have to expect there are going to be teething problems. Again, I realise it's easy for me to say that because I got my Wave 2 like over 2 months ago now, and I need to rein myself in a little bit and check that and say, well, I'm not the one suffering because of this. But ultimately, if you big picture, if I was not, if I was in a position where I didn't have my Wave 2 yet, I'd probably still be very objective about it and be thinking, yes, it's disappointing. No, the world's not going to end. And I'm sure that they'll make it up to these people at some level as well. I mean, Catalyst, I've spoken about this before as well, they are a company run by gamers for gamers, so you may find that if it's ridiculously late, they'll give you like store credits or something like that. I know they're already discussing that with the dice. I didn't get any dice in Wave 2 because they had manufacturing problems, I think, and rather than give out substandard products, they just canned it. I don't give a damn. If they send me an email saying, oh, you've got a credit for $5 or whatever, I'm probably not going to use it. I mean, I might use it if I ever buy something off Catalyst Direct, which I have done occasionally, but usually I'll go to third parties just because I'm in the UK and Catalyst is obviously in the US, so it's easy for me to get stuff over here directly from a third party. But I'm not going to chase it. I'm not going to. I've got the old Davian dice, like the orange and red ones that come in those like packs of 6. I've got 2 sets of those. I also use like specialist purple dice as well, which I use if I'm playing the dust counters, which I've got loads of dust counter stuff that I use on tabletop, and I like to have themed dice. So I don't care about 2 random Davian dice that I probably never use, especially if they're poor quality. I just don't care. So whatever. I mean, I've seen like, I'll put it to this, I've seen people in comment sections saying that they've had like land packs missing and multiple things missing. That was the only thing I had missing, and I expected it would be missing. There are like I said, if my Wave 2 had came and they were missing like 2 or 3 of my wave packs, I might be like, I'm probably going to have to speak to someone about that. But, you know, for certain things, I don't care. Dice is one of those. Anyway, so that's the news this week. Hopefully, over the next few... I still have a feeling there's going to be an announcement before Christmas. I did think it would be in around now. Nothing's come in. There's kind of radio silence on the Kickstarter site. I've not heard anyone from Capellans speak about anything directly to do with like Wave 3. I think they're keeping it very hush-hush. I'm now more convinced than ever that Wave 3 is going to be vehicles. And I also think just from the Barnes and Noble set that is exclusive to them, the one with the Annihilator in there, which is a mercenary unit pack. I also get the impression that might be like a precursor to what they want to do next. So they could do like vehicles and like certain mercenary packs. So you might get something like the Kellhounds pack, you know, and the mechs associated with them, and maybe vehicles as like a supplementary or something like that. Maybe like VTOLs, or that's vertical takeoff landing. I know we use that like abbreviation all the time, but I don't know if it's like universal. It's something I don't even know if that's how like the military describe it. I'd say helicopters. I don't know if people in the military say VTOLs. I've got no idea. Might be a BattleTech thing. Might not be. But I think like you'll probably see like I think there'll be a different direction for Wave 3. My prediction was that Wave 3 would be a lot more lo-fi than Wave 1 and Wave 2. So I think that the amount of stock that they'll be, or the amount of options that they'll be doing, will be much more limited. I really hope that's the case anyway, because I think if they just have like a bit of a, not so much a common sense approach, because I think Wave 1 and Wave 2 were acceptable to make them that big because it was over such a prolonged period of time, but I would much rather see smaller like Kickstarters. So do a Kickstarter where you can choose 4 wave packs and that's it. And then there's not like mass manufacturing issues where they're going to have to like get 3 factories to do all this. Just keep it nice and simple, where if you are a Kellhounds player or a Grey Death Legion player or whatever else, you can basically go and go and get the 4 mech packs, whatever, that are relevant to them, and then you've got like a nice starter set there in the new plastic. You can also supplement that as well with anything from these other like force packs. You don't have to have it specifically to them, but maybe they have like unique mechs in there, like for instance the Annihilator in the Barnes and Noble product that's out at the moment. So we'll see anyway, but that would be my prediction. I think it will be smaller, I think it will be vehicle orientated, and I think there will be a mercenary like flavour to it, something like that. And I don't think they'll be doing the eras. I mean, I've talked about this previously. I don't think we'll get like, oh, it'll be FedCon Civil War. I'd love if they did something like that. I think my kind of perfect scenario would that they did like a Civil War thing for all the different Inner Sphere powers. So like you had like the St. Ives Compact and the Capellans, and you had like the Andurians and the Free Worlds League, and you had the who's the other ones? Karita and the Russellhead Republic, you know, like things like that. If they kind of mixed that into it, I think that'd be really fun, because all those like little Civil War things kind of go on within a specific period of time, at the time that I like as well. And like these powers rise and fall, like the Russellhead Republic rises and falls in that time, as does the St. Ives Compact. Can't recall what happens to the Andurians. I think it's the Andurians, I think that's how you say it. It's basically like right on the edge of the Free Worlds League space. It's like a problematic area, and they kind of constantly want to break away from the Free Worlds League. And I think at one point do they like join the Magistracy of Canopus or something like that. Anyway, news over. So let's move on. Now let's talk about my filthy, disgusting love for Capellans. Capellans are... I have such mixed feelings about them. I am a Fed son, right? That's my bag. They are very vanilla and they're quite boring. But I love the fact that they've got medium mechs. Like I really, really enjoy playing medium mechs. I love the fact that they've got like lots of like enforcers and blackjacks and mechs that I just gravitate towards. But if we are talking about the core part of BattleTech, which are the mechs, you know, that's why I think most of us are here, because those mechs are really cool. And unlike the kind of the Japanese IP mechs, which I can't stand, like that I don't know, the art style and everything else, it just doesn't appeal to me. Whatever BattleTech really does, because it's very industrial. Like, it looks very real world. Like, you know, like those big, like almost like World War II cockpits on legs. Just, I just love it. I love how that looks. It's just really, really fun. So, like, for me, if you're talking about like the key part of BattleTech, which is that, my favourite mechs by a mile are Capellan mechs. I adore Capellan mechs, and that's why I have actually a real affinity for Capellans in some respects. I know that can be very controversial, and Capellan players are quite few and far between in BattleTech. I think you either get like real edgelords who are like, yeah, I just want to like the bad communist guys or whatever. You probably get that with Kurita as well. Although I think Kurita are slightly different because they are so aligned to a specific like society and like Japanese culture. I can imagine if you were like into like Japanese history or anything like that, the Capellans would absolutely like resonate to you because they're basically like summarized with mechs, which is cool. I mean, the Kuritans are the bad guys in BattleTech, but they're also very, very cool, really, when you think about it. Like, their system is horrible, but it breeds, you know, in terms of like warfare, it breeds like fun things that go on, like honor combat and things like that. And, you know, like mech warriors with samurai swords, it's just cool. It's like very 80s, like action film type thing. The Capellans, though, are kind of the little brothers of the Kurita in some respect, like the little bad guys, and they're always very sneaky and cheeky. But I think there are a lot of misconceptions about Capellans. I don't think they're anything like as bad as people reckon on. Like, if you read the history and the lore for them, they tend to get corralled into pretty horrible positions by the bigger powers, especially like, you know, the Fed Sons and the like House Steiner, Free Worlds League to some extent as well. And there is kind of a battle of survival going on by what is a relatively small power. But one of the real offshoots of that, like, little guy trying to make his way in the world, like chip on the shoulder thing, which the Capellans have, is that they tend to make very, very efficient mechs, which you simply don't get in most of the other houses. In fact, all of the other houses, I think the Fed Sons have an efficiency of medium mechs. Like, if you look at something like the Enforcer's got what I would term like, and there might be a correct term for this, I'd just call it like optimized weapons. So it can manage its heat, and it can use those weapons within that heat function, and they've got some maneuverability, and it's relatively well armoured. I mean, I love the Enforcer, it's a brilliant mech. It also it's optimised at that range level as well, so you've got the large laser and the AC-10, which complement each other wonderfully. There's a small laser on there as well, but I'd always forgive like a mech just putting a small laser on randomly, like on its head or something, because just in case you're in real close combat and you need to do a little bit more damage or whatever. But just in terms of its like core weaponry, it just complements very, very well. A lot of other houses, because they are presumably, I mean, okay, this gets us into another topic. It's probably a topic for another day, which is kind of like how marketing dictates mechs, and how some mechs are better than others because some, like, not because of industrial prowess, but because certain marketing techniques to sell those mechs are better. So they actually, when you drill down into it, the mech is utterly useless, but it's really popular in a certain house for reasons. A good example of that is the Dragon for Kurita. So they call it the Dragon, which is very much something you'd like associate with like an Oriental power, which is what Kurita are, like Japanese feudal system. But it's a pretty terrible mech when you kind of drill down into it. It's a weird mech. You know, I own dragons. It's fun to play with dragons, but they're not optimized by any stretch of the imagination. They're quick. That's one good thing. But then they've got like they can tank as well, but then they've got like an AC-5 on there, which has got like minimum range penalties. So there's a lot wrong with that mech, but the Kurita love it. Another Kurita mech, which is really kind of, I consider to be like one step away from very good, is something like the Panther. The Panther, which has traditionally got the PPC and the SRM, is it the SRM4, I think, on a Panther? You could easily swap that out for a PPC, well, keep the PPC and swap the SRM for an LRM5. They complement each other very well. They've both got minimum range requirements, so you'd have to basically snipe from a distance. But with those two weapons on there. It's like you can never optimize it. You can use the PPC or you can really use the SRM, and the SRM doesn't have much bang for its buck. And if you get too close to use the SRM, you're going to get absolutely destroyed by a heavier mech, because you are, even at 35 ton, which is obviously like the heaviest light mech that you can get, it's still a light mech and it's got pretty, ropey armor levels. So you never can optimize it. And I think like that to me is one of the key factors in is a mech good or not, is that optimalization, if that's even a word, of said mech in terms of its range and its heat management. And it's one of the great joys of BattleTech that these little idiosyncrasies exist, because, well, in terms of lore, it's because of marketing. Like, a big industrial power might have loads of like SRM4s held over, and they might be thinking, we can probably just put them on the Panther, because the Cretans are stupid enough to buy them, because, we'll throw, for every dragon that you buy, we'll throw in a free Panther or something like that. Maybe, I don't know, 10 dragons and one free Panther, and they'll take it and they'll, whatever, we'll do it, we'll market it, we'll get the marketing team to kind of sell this lemon for us. Get on it, people. And that reflects then in kind of how the universe is in BattleTech, which is very real world, and that's what really appeals, I think, well, certainly to me, and I think to most people about BattleTech. But then when you get onto the topic of hand here, which is efficient mechs, there is nobody better than the Capellans. Now, to demonstrate this, I am going to go on Flex today, which is Flex Sheets. I am absolutely certain that most people watching have heard of this. If you haven't, I'm about to change your life. Flex Sheets is basically an app where you can like real-time manage classic BattleTech. So for instance, I'll just give a very quick example here. If you, this is a catapult, which I'm going to talk about in a second. If you do, I don't know, let's say we do 10 damage to the armor on this this torso here, or this side torso, you can see that it reflects the damage there. What's wonderful about Flex though is that if you say, for instance, let's say we break the gyro here, put a crit on the gyro, you can see that it gives you like the PCR test that you need there as a reminder. It also demonstrates that there is a hit there. You can then like take out like a foot, and you can see then that it will actually give you the running and walking speeds, the new speeds, which are obviously deteriorated. It's just wonderful. It's a wonderful, wonderful thing. I always use this with new players, especially younger new players, because obviously young, and I kind of fit into this bracket as well because I like digital stuff. So if you can do this on a phone or a tablet or something like that, and you've got that where you are playing on tabletop but you can manage your data on a tablet, yeah, really, really great. It's also incredibly convenient just because it does, even like, look at that, it gives you like the melee stats there, so it tells you like your kick is now at -1 instead of -2, so you get a slight disadvantage because you've had what is it we've damaged here, the foot actuator. You can also do that on the heat as well, so when we get at heat 8 there, it will tell us in red what our modifiers are. So this is, just trying to think of any other features. I think there are a few more. The heat sink's another one. So if I crit a heat sink, you can see it tells you there you've got 14 instead of 15. So it's amazing. Won't be for everyone, because I think for a lot of people they like the whole experience of playing with like the sheets of paper. I have that as well. I mean, I've got like a laminator that I use to to do that. And I'm quite comfortable doing that, but just for pure convenience, I don't think there is much better than Flex. So there you are, there's my advert for Flex. This video isn't sponsored, it's a wonderful thing, and if I ever met the person that designed this, I would buy them many pints, maybe even a pub lunch, because this is a superb resource. Why it's also a fantastic resource is because you can, at a glance, just see what a mech's loadout is. They also have all the variants in here. So if you kind of go to the search engine there, and I've typed in Vindicator, you've got Vindicators there for like all the Vindicators that exist, right up until, where's that, like 3078. It's amazing. So kudos to the people that developed this. Anyway, that's my little advertisement for Flex there. Let's get on with what I'm going to talk about today, though, which is why Capellan mechs are the best. Now, before I get into this specifically, it's important to know that when I'm talking about like the catapult, which I've got to start with because the catapult is my favourite mech, The Catapult isn't a specific Capellan mech. It's not something that the Capellans designed in their own right. In the lore, they kind of just ended up with a factory, and it was like there was like limited numbers that were being produced, and it's very much seen in like the eras that I usually play as quite a rare mech. And the leader of my mercenary group actually pilots a Catapult. He was born in the Fed Sons in the Capellan March, which you probably doesn't surprise you, given that I like the Fed Sons but have like a secret filthy admiration for the Capellans. It's probably no surprise to you that my mercenary unit operate in the Capellan March, which is occupied by the House Davy and the Fed Sons, but it's just like the area that's in constant dispute with the Capellans. And my mercenary captain, or whatever you want to call him, leader of the mercenary unit, he steals a Catapult from a Capellan like force. I can't remember what it is in the lore that I wrote for them, but he basically ends up with a Catapult and falls in love and calls it Mina, and that's his Catapult. The Catapult though is this, and this is the C1. I tend to gravitate towards the C4, but for the purposes of this, I'm only going to discuss the vanilla variants. Now, why? Again, this kind of fits outside of my like theory on Capellan stuff a little bit, because this wasn't designed by the Capellans specifically, but it's kind of an example of like the Capellans got the Catapult and were like, yeah, that's a damn good mech. Where you can imagine like the Lyran Commonwealth would have got the Catapult and put 2 AC-20s on there, or some stupid idea. I don't know. Maybe not 2 AC-20s, so it wouldn't fit with the tonnage, but you know what I mean, because they have Steiner idiots. So they'd have ruined it. Whereas the Capellans were like, no, that's a really, really great mech. We can build forces around that. Just look at what the Karita did when they got the Catapult. They put 2 PPCs on the side of it, which is a god-awful idea. It took its jump capability away. I hate that mech. K2, I think it is. What a typical Karita. Like, the Karitas are not good with mechs. Usually they don't really know what they're doing. They should have just employed the Catapult, the Capellan engineers to design them for them, because everybody should, because the Capellan engineers, probably out of necessity, because they are a very, very restricted force in a lot of ways, they are the smallest inner sphere force, they have to kind of really optimise their efficiencies, which is why I think they are best at designing mechs. The Catapult in itself, this like the C1 variant, and I'm not going to talk about this for very long, but like it's vanilla variant, 2 LRM-15s, 4 medium lasers. That really does pack a lovely punch. It's not optimized though. Like you would be firing that as like primary and secondary weapons, so you probably go in primary with your LRM-15s, and then if you need to close down the enemy, then you switch to your medium lasers. It can kind of deal with the heat pretty efficiently. Though. I mean, 15 heat sinks. That's always something I look at. So a medium laser generates 3 heat. So if you fire all your medium lasers, you're generating 12 heat. So you can deal with it absolutely no problem at all. Jumping as well. You know, you've got to be slightly careful. You're not going to really be able to alpha strike. Or you can do like a jump and an alpha strike, but if you do that more than twice, you're going to be cooking. So you've got to be slightly careful with the heat management of the Catapult, and it's not 100% efficient when it comes to its weapon systems, but because of how those weapon systems sit, so because like you'd come in from a distance and you basically use your LRM-15s, then you close down, you switch to your M lasers, so it does become efficient for that reason, kind of, if you know what I mean. It's not something so stupid where you've got like a primary weapon that you can barely use because you've got to sit back and snipe with it, and then all your other weapons are short range, and you do get some mechs like that, and they're just really, really difficult to manage. So the Catapult is generally a very, very efficient mech. It's also, for a 65 tonner, it's very, very like maneuverable. 4 jump jets, runs at 6. So it's a beautiful mech. I mean, there's not much more to say. I mean, one of the reasons, actually, my criteria for judging what I like in mechs, a lot of it does come down to aesthetics. I know it sounds really shallow, but it is kind of one of the things. Like, the Catapult just looks awesome. It's got that, like, massive, almost like a B-52 bomber head with, like, massive missile pods attached to it. It just looks awesome. So, and it's got those, like weird legs. Like, they're not human legs. They're, like, animal legs. So it kind of, like, you know, strides around the battlefield. It's very, very cool. And love the Catapult, and damned if the Capellans don't make the most of it, because they absolutely do. again, it's important to emphasise that every other mech that I'm going to talk about here is of Capellan design, apart from the catapult. They got the catapult by accident and utilised it well. Next up, let's talk about like the real soldier of the Capellan, or the workhorse of the Capellan mech regiments, and that's the Vindicator. The Vindicator is probably, I think, if you were going to ask me, in terms of everything, now, I'm not going to talk about battle value or C-bill levels or anything else on this. We're just going to talk about the actual mech itself. But if you kind of factor in everything in terms of like price and armour and manoeuvrability and weaponry for a medium mech, I think the Vindicator is probably the best medium mech in the game. For my style, that's important to say, because some people have a very different BattleTech style. So some people will just like to play like very atypical House Steiner and just load everything up with ACE weaponry. Or you can do kind of House Davian do that a little bit as well, but they tend to be more nuanced and bring medium mechs as opposed to assaults and heavies. But the Vindicator for me, and he's just the quintessential mech that you bring to the table, nice and cheap. Anyone, you can imagine that like it'd be a training mech for a lot of mech warriors, because it's only 45 tons, so it's not going to like overwhelm someone. It's not huge and difficult to manage. It's it's an efficient looking mech, but more importantly, it's also incredibly efficient when it comes to its like range and heat. So you can see it's got 16 heat sinks. Just zoom in there a little bit. Armor's okay, given that you're going to be really more sniping with the Vindicator really, or trying to like outmaneuver the opponent. It doesn't necessarily need massive amounts of armor, because you're not really going to go in for a close range kill. You can see that by the weaponry, and that's a PPC and an LRM5. That's definitely its main weapons. So kind of like I was talking about the Panther with the PPC and the SRM4. I think it's SRM4. I can't imagine an SRM6 would get on the Panther. It's too small to carry PPC and an SRM6. But a PPC and an LRM5 complement each other beautifully, because they've both got the minimum range requirements, which means that if you go below that range, you take penalties to hit. So it forces you to snipe. But they've both got very, very decent levels of range. Max for the PPC 18, max for the LRM 21. I call that inches because I don't play hex grids, but if you're playing on hex grids, it's hex grids. So 21 hex grids. You've then got, if you do get in trouble, or if someone tries to close you down a little bit, you've got the medium laser and the small laser there to kind of, to pack a little bit of a punch at least. And having that jump capability as well just means that you can really get out of trouble if that happens. Just jump backwards up a hill and see if the big assault mech can, like crawl after you, because it probably can't. Still dangerous, obviously, but if you can find like cover and jump back into trees or something like that, it's ideal. And I do think the Vindicator, it's real testament to how good the Capellans are at designing mechs. You get this, like certain other Innisphere powers or, clan powers or whatever, they will have very efficient mechs as well. But given that the Vindicator is like en masse created for the Capellan forces, and you can see that like, or you could see that, for instance, if they were being invaded by a foreign power or another Innisphere power or whatever, and they had several lances of Vindicators and like combined arms and troops, whatever opposition they're going to go against is going to be very scared of that, because the Vindicator is just so damn efficient. And if you can field quite a few of them on a battlefield relatively cheaply as well, you will do pretty catastrophic damage to the enemy. So yeah, love the Vindicator. Not much more to say about it. It's like I say, it's the quintessential medium mech, cheap, nice, wonderful weaponry, and decent armor and maneuverable. Ticks all my boxes. Next up, we'll talk about a light mech. This is the Raven. The Raven is a mech that has a lot of electronic systems on there. So you see it's got the Beagle Active Probe, the ECM. I don't really use these on tabletop. You can't, like the ECM, the ECM will basically protect you from other mechs seeing you on sensors. The Beagle Active Probe, which I don't think I've ever used on tabletop, I think that's, if a mech is shut down or there's something that's in sensor range that's hiding you from it, the Beagle Active Probe will be able to see that. But honestly, I'm not that big a fan of like electronic systems in BattleTech. It makes the game convoluted and that bores me. I'm quite happy with things like targeting computers. That's a nice one. That's like, oh, you get bonuses to hit. That's fine. But when it's like, oh, we're going to have like sensor rules and like you can see these ones, I'm just not bothered about stuff like that. So these things, if you play with those rules, the Raven becomes super useful. Where I would find this useful, it's got the narc and the tag. Narc and tag are basically like systems that don't do any damage, but they allow, if you kind of hit with them, it means that I can't remember the exact rules. I've not played it for ages, but either it's easier for you to hit with your mechs or like other, well, either the Raven or the other mechs in your lance with their weaponry. It either allows you better chances to hit or it does more damage. Might be a variant of those. Can't remember off the top of my head, but that could be super useful. But if you just look at its standard weaponry, 2 M lasers and SRM6 is super useful. I mean, again, you go by that efficiency. Look, they've all got the same rates on range there, 369. So if you get within a pretty close range, if you get within like 6 hexes, 6 inches of an opposition, you can do medium strikes. You can probably be doing that when you're running because it's an incredibly quick mech. I mean, running at 9 is really, really strong. Not jump capable, but you're sacrificing jump jets there really to get the extra firepower on all the extra electronics. I do think, I mean, I'd probably say the Raven is one of the best light mechs in the game by some way, just for its electronics, and especially when this was created, 3048, so this is pre-clan invasion. So it's like really in the inner sphere at that time, this was like the absolute top of the chain in terms of like mech design and technology. And very typical that the Capellans would have done that because they would have seen the advantage to being able to kind of, you know, sneak behind enemy lines using that like Guardian ECM and do pretty catastrophic damage with a light mech with that 2 medium lasers and an SRM6. I mean, that's something that will scare even assault mech, especially if you get into rear arcs of fire. You can absolutely destroy like torsos, maybe even a center torso if you come across the right kind of mech with a weak like back armor. What else have we got here? I don't think there's much else to discuss. It has got the XL engine. The XL engine is like a boon and a curse. I know a lot of players don't like it. It's bad because you can take a hell of a lot more engine hits, and even on your right and left torso, you've got the XL built into it. So you can see, like, you know, I can crit that, for instance, or you can crit that. So you take this, you know, the same, like most engines will only be in the center torso, and it'll take up 6 points on your crit list. The XL engine takes up 12, which means that it's just got a hell of a lot more chance of being destroyed, but that gives you that 6-9 that I was talking about above there in terms of the walking and the running. So, like, for me, I don't really care about that. I've had success on the battlefield using XL engines. I know a lot of people really gravitate away from it though, which is fair enough. And I'm not some kind of like superb player on BattleTechs, like tabletop. So I tend to play narrative stuff. But if you're playing competitively, I imagine you wouldn't like that. Just a feeling, and I've heard people talk about it, but that's probably the case. In terms of heat management, it's got 11 heat sinks, which is pretty perfect. I mean, what's that? 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So it generates 10 heat on an alpha strike. Obviously, tags and narcs don't generate any heat. So you can basically, well, you can walk and shoot all day. You can effectively run and shoot all day as well. So it's a very, very, it doesn't run cool, especially if you're running, but it almost runs cool. I think running cool is like a clan term. It's like when your heat efficiency is just so good, you can just basically do everything. You can jump and strike and not worry about your heat at all because you've basically got double heat sinks all over the place. This doesn't have double heat sinks because they were very, very rare at this time. I think they existed at this time in the inner sphere, but it was very, very rare, and I don't think anyone was making them. I think it was only kind of old salvage that they'd found from the like from the Star League days. Although saying actually no, it's probably not right because they discovered the Helm data core by this point. I think it was 3028. So somebody somewhere may have been creating double heat sinks, but they certainly will have been rare. Next up, we'll deal with our heavy on the list, and just so you know, I've got a list here of a mix between lights, mediums, heavies, and assaults. We'll deal with the next, the heavy next. This is the CATAPHRACT. The CATAPHRACT I love. I think it's a glorious, glorious mech. It's an absolute tank. It's kind of what you call a Franken mech. and it's just testament to how damn good the Capellans were in terms of their ability to adapt. So at this time, when it was created, 3025, the Capellans had a huge like lack of heavy mechs, and they had things like the Vindicators and they had catapults as well, but they couldn't churn the catapults out very quickly because they were quite a rare mech at the time, so quite hard to make. So very, very good. So I think someone in the kind of chain of command was like, let's just make our own mech and we'll piece it together from other mechs. So they got things like, I think the CATAPHRACT, for instance, it's the legs of a marauder and it's got the right arm of a marauder, and then it's got the left arm of something else, and then it's got the torso of something else. So it's basically just like a mech that is stitched together from other multiple mechs. Just in terms, I mean, as a heavy mech, this, apart from it not being jump capable, which doesn't really matter for this mech because it's a tank, because it's got really decent levels of armor. I've not really talked about much about armor, but you can just take my word for it. The armor on this is, for this era of time, is fine. It's just standard armor. It's not the I can never say this word, fibro-furious or whatever it is armor, like the specialist armor or anything. It's just standard. But just look at its weaponry here. So we've got an autocannon 10, a PPC, and 4 M lasers, which does a hell of a lot of damage. You know, I mean, that's 30 points of damage if you hit everything, which is probably not going to happen, but still, that's really, really good. And we have got 16 heat sinks. So our total heat generation here is above that, so it doesn't run completely efficient in terms of its heat management. So what you'd probably tend to do, especially because of the minimum range penalty on PPCs, you probably group together your autocannon 10 and your PPC, shoot that when you're kind of zoning in on the opposition, and then you'd probably drop the PPC when you get into range, and then just basically fire all day with your AC-10 and your 4M lasers. That's this again. Keep in mind it's the period of time, so 3025. That's a really strong loadout, and far better than a lot of like older mechs that are supposed to be like amazing. The CATAPHRACT for me is absolutely in that bracket. You can do incredible levels of damage with this mech. It's got little things like and I've not really touched on this yet, but a lot of people don't like weaponry in their arms, and I'm not a big fan of that either. Basically, what weaponry in arms, it's easier to get destroyed because arms have like less like armor. Well, I think actually the CATAPHRACT I think has more. Actually, yeah. There must be is it structure? There's less structure on the arm, for sure. It might be something to do with the hit to roll table as well. That's kind of... I've not played BattleTech competitively for so long because of COVID. A lot of the rules have kind of sifted from my mind. But it might be... It's here, isn't it, the table? Yeah, so right arm... I think that will be why, because... No, I was going to say maybe the right arm, or like an arm can get hit more than a torso or something in the kind of hit table. That doesn't look to be the case at first glance. Anyway, going off topic here. What I'd say is, though, my point I was going to make is that your AC-10, which is really your main weapon on here because it does the same amount of damage as a PPC, but it doesn't generate anything like that heat level. And it's almost in that level of range. The only, obviously it's slightly less than the PPC. The only negative thing about the autocannon 10, obviously, is that it's got ammo. But that's how I'd look at this anyway. I'd drop the PPC when I was closing down for the kill on a mech just because it generates too much heat, and then I'd focus on the other 5 weapons. And I would really kind of, oh, actually, I'm saying that. I think one of these M lasers is rear? Yeah, 2 of them are rear. So that basically changes the dynamic. It's quite unusual for Capellans, I think, because rear lasers are not good. That, though, does fix the PPC problem, now that I am thinking about it, because then you can basically fire the PPC more, because you won't be able to shoot 2 of these lasers. And the reason I didn't see that right off the cuff is because it's here. So left torso rear and right torso rear, these 2 medium lasers. That is quite frustrating. I always find when you find that in a mech, it can be like, why have they done that? Why would you put like rear arc lasers in? It's kind of a waste, especially in this mech where you can be quite heat efficient with it. So might have been destroying my own point here that Capellans have the most efficient mechs, but just for the sake of what's on there as like core weaponry and heat management and armor and everything else, The CATAPHRACT is a very, very good mech. And as well, it's just testament to them that they just stitched this together from multiple mechs that they'd found like lying around on salvage. And like I said, I just love that about the Capellans. I love that like level of innovation from them, that they'd be willing to do that. You just don't get that on the other Ionosphere powers are just like, let's make more atlases, which is super boring. An important point as well, just in terms of going back to the aesthetic, all these mechs look really cool. I mean, the CATAPHRACT just looks like a big wall. Like it's completely unique, weird design, and it's got like the Marauder legs, but like a straight back. So it just looks really, really like outlandish on the battlefield. I just love it. And then finally, we have got the Yu Huang. The Yu Huang, which is for me a very, very late mech. I only play up to Fed Civil War, so this is very much like a Civil War era mech. This is an assault mech, so quite rare from the Capellans, like one of their an assault mech that they've designed. They're not really that well known for their assault mechs. They're much more well known for their like light and mediums. Weaponry on this I would consider to be pretty perfect, apart from one thing, and that's the extended range PPC, which I really don't like because of the 15 heat generation. I would be far happier just having a regular old PPC and having 10 heat generation on there personally. So then got the one medium pulse laser. Medium pulses are you get a benefit to hit, so you get a -2 to hit on pulse lasers, which is really useful. But they weigh 2 tons, and unlike a regular M laser which weighs 1, and they only do 6 damage. So I'm not really feeling that as a kind of payoff. I don't know. I mean, I suppose you could argue because of that like -2 to hit, which is great, that might kind of mitigate that. You got an LRM-10 on there, 2 M lasers, no rear medium lasers this time, and then an LB-20X AC, which is a madman of a weapon. The LB-20X AC is basically similar to an AC-20, which is pretty much like the biggest gun in BattleTech. Apart from it shoots like a shotgun, so you roll to hit on the cluster table as opposed to like just doing 1 point of damage. That can be super beneficial. I love the LB weaponry, actually. I think it's fantastic. You can see that it's huge and it takes up a lot of space there, so it's split between both sections of the right arm and the right torso. It's an absolute monster of a weapon. Yes, a lot can go wrong. I mean, you probably will lose that weapon if you get hit quite badly. I mean, 29 points of armor on the right arm is really strong, so that might help you out a little bit. But if you get any crits on there, you can probably say bye-bye to your beautiful LP20. What else we got here? XL engine again, so all the problems and benefits that come with that. For a 90-ton mech though, 464. Really, really manoeuvrable. Loving that 4 on the jump jets as well. That can really get you out of trouble with an assault mech. So yeah, just heat management's got double. This is the first mech that I've got on the list. It's got double heat sink, so that does 26 points of heat management a turn. In terms of the weaponry, it's only the ER PPC wear which is causing trouble. Everything you could close in from afar, use just the ER PPC and the LRM-10. And then as soon as you get into range, you just start cranking out with the medium pulse laser, 2 M lasers, and the LB-20. And that's going to do pretty devastating damage to your opposition. If you can use your lance to maneuver like a safe passage for this particular mech to get into range, and try and like if you use like your speedier mechs to like draw fire, which is quite a good tactic in BattleTech, and you can sneak this chap in with his nice running of 6 while you're just kind of popping off your PPC and they don't think it's much of a threat, and then lo and behold you are stood 5 hexes away from them and you have got an LB-20X an LB 20X AC. Then yes, your opposition's going to feel that and feel that very, very strongly. So yeah, I mean, again, all these mechs that I've chosen are, and all these mechs I've chosen are very, very efficient. There's a couple, like I said, a couple of issues, like on the CATAPHRACT with the rear lasers, or like the use of XL engines, things that people might not like, stuff like that. Some of them as well, probably not as well armoured as a lot of people like. Some have got arm weapons. But I think in terms of like the overall scheme of what's going on with a mech, then or a mech design, the Capellans just nail it on the head almost every time. I think if you look at it like this, if you kind of look at Steiner, like the vast majority of the mechs that they will design are like just walking AC weapons, and they're very limited in what they can do, and they might not be heat efficient, they might have problems. Their efficiency might be like at a certain percentage. The Capellans are probably 20 points above that, just out of necessity, because they've got to be. They can't just throw things into the mix here. They've got to think more carefully about the things that they put out on the battlefield, and that then really kind of gives you an advantage on the battlefield. And I can see why, like, if you wanted to play just competitively but with a narrative flavour, so you wanted to bring a Capellan force to field, then you're going to have probably an advantage over every other Inner Sphere power. Especially the eras that I play. When you kind of get into clan era and all the electronics start going crazy and the game starts getting very convoluted, which is why I don't like it after like the FedCom Civil War, the creep the codex creep kind of comes in the FedCom Civil War, and they never really turn back to that. So everything's got like super complex electronics and systems on there, which just bores the hell out of me. But if you're talking about the era I play and you've got a lance of Capellans, if you had like a Raven and you were using the kind of Beagle Probe rules and the ECM rules, a couple of Cataphracts, a Vindicator, you're going to be able to take it to town against almost anyone in BattleTech. And I like that part of it. I like the fact that the mechs look cool, they're designed really efficiently. Yes, they are the bad guys, but my God, they know how to design mechs. It's something it's not something I don't like about the Fed Sons, because the Fed Sons can design mechs as well, but they're not anything like as proficient as the Capellans, unfortunately. As I'm saying that as a Fed Sons player, the Fed Sons would tend to just bring 50 blackjacks to the war and just have everyone dackering from a distance. The Capellans are much more like pinpointed. So you're going with a lance, and that lance is like almost as efficient as it can get, a couple of exceptions. And you can just really kind of take that fight to the enemy. And I admire that about them. And for someone that plays skirmish BattleTech, so I usually play lance on lance, or lance, maybe two lances against a star or something like that. The Capellans always resonate to me, because it means that if I'm going on, if you do have that odd competitive game with someone, doing it with the Capellans is always like the best option for me. Far more so than like the whole cliche of, they all talk about like the Steiner Scout Lance, you know, you bring 4 Atlases to so boring. Yeah, give me jump capable mechs with like that look cool and have got like really cool efficient weaponry on them any day of the week. Anyway, that's my little talk over this week. Just on a point of note, there will be no video next week because I'm actually on holiday. So I will release a video in 2 weeks, or 2 weekends away from here. That is unless Catalyst announce something crazy before Thursday this week, in which case I might do a video on it before I go on holiday. I'm doubting that's going to happen. I don't think we'll get any news now until December. I think they want to kind of get all the Wave 2 shipments done before they start announcing anything. Anyway, I think on that note, I'm going to end it. So I'll thank you very much for watching, and I'll hopefully catch you again next time.